Your great-grandfather knew every person who bought from him, knew their names, knew their families, knew what they needed and when they needed it, sold directly to them at prices they negotiated together, built relationships that lasted decades. Those weren't abstract buyers at a grain elevator. Those were customers, real people, who came to his farm, who waited for his crop because they wanted his quality specifically, who paid him directly, who shook his hand when the deal was done. Your grandfather still sold to some customers directly. Not as many as his father, not as often, but he still had customers, still had some control over who bought his crop and what they paid. Still knew where his grain was going and who was using it. You sell to whoever the elevator tells you to sell to, at whatever price they're offering that day. You've never met the person who actually buys your crop. You don't know their name. You don't know where it goes after the truck leaves. You have zero relationship with the end buyer of your own production, and you can't go back. Those customers are gone. That market access disappeared. That control is locked away, not temporarily, permanently. This isn't about farmers being too lazy to sell direct. This isn't about modern markets being more efficient. This is about how American farmers went from selling their own crops to their own customers at their own prices, to being price takers with zero control over who buys, what they pay, or where the crop ends up. Fellow farmers, your grandfather had leverage. When a buyer offered too little, he could wait, could sell to someone else, could find another customer. He wasn't stuck. He wasn't dependent. He had options because he had customers, multiple customers, real relationships built over years. You have one option, the elevator price, take it or don't sell. That's not leverage, that's dependence. 3 reasons this happened, 3 changes that seemed logical when they arrived. 3 shifts that ended farmer control over their own markets and created dependence nobody planned and nobody wanted. The first reason looked like progress, convenience, scale, efficiency, and at first, it actually was. In 1920, your great-grandfather loaded his grain onto a wagon and took it to town, sold it directly to the miller, or to a livestock feeder, or to a merchant who bought for specific customers. Every sale was direct, every transaction was between him and someone who actually wanted his grain. That sale took time, negotiation, samples, quality checks, discussion about price based on his costs and their needs. Sometimes he waited days to find the right buyer at the right price. Sometimes he stored grain until prices improved. The market moved slowly enough that farmers could think, could choose, could negotiate. Then grain elevators expanded. Not the small local ones his father knew, big regional elevators, with scale, with efficiency, with speed. Show up with a truck, pull onto the scale, sample automatically tested, grade determined, price quoted, unload and leave, payment in 20 minutes instead of 2 days. No negotiation, no waiting, no searching for buyers. Just show up, sell, leave. The convenience was real. The time savings were real. Your grandfather watched neighbors start selling to elevators, heard about how easy it was, how fast, how simple. No more driving town to town finding buyers. No more storing grain waiting for better prices. Just deliver and get paid. And the elevator buyers were professional, friendly, made the process smooth. Farmers started thinking, why spend a week finding direct buyers when I can sell everything in one trip to the elevator? The economics made sense, sort of. The elevator price was slightly lower than direct sale prices, but the time saved was worth something. The convenience was worth something. Not hunting for buyers was worth something. The math seemed to work. So farmers switched. Your grandfather probably switched, started selling to elevators instead of direct customers. Thought he was choosing efficiency, thought he was modernizing, didn't realize he was trading customer relationships for corporate convenience, trading price control for price taking, trading independence for dependence. And it seemed fine for a while. The elevator prices seemed reasonable, the convenience was real, the speed was valuable during busy seasons. It looked like progress. But here's what your grandfather didn't see coming. Once farmers stopped selling direct, the direct buyers disappeared. The millers who bought direct, they started buying from elevators instead. The livestock feeders who bought from farmers switched to elevators. The merchants who bought for specific customers, gone, out of business. The infrastructure of direct sales collapsed, not slowly, fast. Within 10 years, most direct buyers were gone. Because why would they buy from individual farmers when they could buy everything from one elevator? And once those buyers disappeared, well, farmers couldn't go back. Couldn't sell direct even if they wanted to, because the customers were gone. The market infrastructure was gone. The elevator became the only option, not the convenient option, the only option. Did your grandfather sell directly to customers? Who were they? What happened to those relationships? This history matters. Share what you remember below. But convenience was just the beginning. The second reason made dependence permanent: infrastructure, consolidation, scale, corporate control. In 1950, there were thousands of small local grain elevators, farmer-owned co-ops, small private operators. Every town had options. Multiple elevators competing for your grain. If one offered a bad price, so you drove to another, competition kept prices honest, kept leverage with farmers. Then consolidation started. Small elevators bought by bigger ones. Local co-ops absorbed by regional corporations. Private operators selling to national companies. Every year, fewer elevators, less competition, more concentration. By 1970, many towns had 2 elevators instead of 5. By 1990, many had 1. By 2000, some had 0. Farmers driving 30 miles to find a buyer. And as elevators consolidated, they built infrastructure farmers couldn't match. Massive storage, high-speed receiving, direct rail access, shipping contracts, export connections, infrastructure that cost hundreds of millions, that only giant corporations could afford. Shit, your grandfather's small, direct sales couldn't compete with that, couldn't match that scale, couldn't access those export markets, couldn't ship direct to Japan or China or Europe. He needed the elevator infrastructure to reach those markets. So dependence deepened. Not just convenience anymore, necessity. You literally could not access global markets without selling to elevators. The infrastructure farmers needed was controlled by corporations farmers didn't own. And as competition disappeared, so did leverage. When 5 elevators compete for your grain, you have options. When 1 elevator controls the region, you have no options. They set the price. You take it. No negotiation, no alternatives, no leverage. Your grandfather watched this happen. Watched local elevators close. Watched options disappear. Watched prices get worse as competition declined. But what could he do? He needed someone to buy his grain, and the elevator was the only buyer left. Then it got worse, because consolidation didn't stop at elevators. The corporations that owned elevators started buying the companies that milled grain, and the companies that made food, and the companies that exported. Vertical integration. One corporation controlling every step from your field to the final customer. Which means they're not just buying your grain. They're controlling what price you get, what price they sell for, and keeping all the profit in between. You get squeezed on both ends. Lower prices paid to you, higher prices charged to end users, and the corporation captures everything in the middle. Your great-grandfather sold direct and captured the full value. Your grandfather sold to independent elevators and got most of the value. You sell to vertically integrated corporations that control the entire chain and leave you with whatever margin they decide to give you. How many grain elevators are left in your area compared to when your grandfather farmed? Who owns them now? This consolidation affects every farmer. Share what's happened in your region below. The third reason locked it all in place. And this one's pure legal control. Production contracts, forward contracts, marketing agreements, delivery commitments. Yes, an entire legal framework that turns farmers from independent sellers into contracted suppliers with zero flexibility. In 1950, your grandfather grew a crop and sold it to whoever offered the best price when he was ready to sell. His crop, his decision, his timing, his customer choice. That's what ownership meant. Now, you sign a contract before you plant, Agreeing to sell a specific amount at a specific quality to a specific buyer at a price determined months before harvest. You're committed before the seed goes in the ground. And if you don't sign, good luck finding a buyer at harvest. Because the elevators have contracted most of their capacity already. They don't need your grain if you didn't sign up front. You're on your own. And on your own means desperate, which means terrible prices. So you sign, because not signing means being locked out completely. The contract is coercion disguised as convenience. Sign or we might not have room for you isn't a choice. It's a threat, and once you sign, you're locked in. Market price goes up after you signed? Too bad. Your contract says you sell at the lower price. Quality comes in better than expected? Doesn't matter. Contract price is fixed. Weather hurts yields, and you can't deliver the contracted amount? You're in breach. They can sue you. The contract protects them from all risks and leaves you holding all risks. They win if prices go down. They win if prices go up. They win if your crop succeeds. They win if your crop fails. But you bear all the risk and they capture all the upside. Your great-grandfather bore his own risks but kept his own rewards. If he gambled on holding grain and prices went up, he won. If he picked the right buyer and negotiated well, he profited. Risk and reward balanced because he controlled both. You bear all the risk with none of the reward. Just down. Prices drop? You're committed to deliver at low prices. Prices rise? You're committed to deliver at low prices. Crop fails? You're in breach of contract. Crop succeeds? They get it at the preset price. Heads they win, tails you lose. And these contracts are getting worse, tighter, more restrictive, more punitive. Because as elevators consolidate, as competition disappears, Mars says farmers lose leverage. The corporations write contracts that favor themselves completely. Some contracts now control what varieties you plant, what inputs you use, when you harvest, how you store, how you deliver. They don't just buy your crop, they control your entire operation. You're not an independent farmer selling a product. You're a contracted labor force growing crops they already own. And some corporations are going further. Buying the farmland itself, owning the ground, hiring the farmer as essentially an employee. The land isn't yours. The crop isn't yours. The decisions aren't yours. You're operating someone else's farm under someone else's control, growing crops for someone else's profit. That's not farming, that's sharecropping. Well, that's what your great-grandfather escaped. And it's what your grandchildren might be stuck in. What contracts have you signed? Are you locked in to specific buyers? What control have you given up to secure a market? Fellow farmers need to know what we're all facing. Share below. 3 reasons, 3 changes, 3 shifts that turned farmers from independent sellers into dependent price takers. First came convenience. Elevators made selling fast and easy. Farmers chose convenience over customer relationships, over price control, over market independence. And once direct buyers disappeared, convenience became compulsion. Then came consolidation. Thousands of local elevators became dozens of national corporations. Competition disappeared. Options vanished. Infrastructure concentrated in corporate hands. Farmers lost leverage because they lost alternatives. Finally came contracts, legal agreements that lock farmers into selling before planting, that transfer all risk to farmers and all profit to corporations, that turn ownership into servitude, that make farmers employees on their own land. Your great-grandfather controlled his markets, chose his customers, set his prices, negotiated his deals. His crop was his to sell how he wanted, when he wanted, to who he wanted. Your grandfather lost most of that control but kept some. Still had options, still had some negotiating power, still knew where his grain was going even if he couldn't set the final price. You have no control. You check the elevator price and hope it covers costs. You sign contracts that favor corporations completely. You deliver grain to buyers you'll never meet at prices you didn't negotiate for uses you'll never know. And here's what makes it permanent. The customers are gone. The direct buyers disappeared. The small elevators closed. The competition consolidated. The infrastructure centralized. The contracts locked in. Even if you wanted to sell direct now, you couldn't, because nobody's buying direct. The market for direct sales doesn't exist anymore. Your great-grandfather's customers are all dead. Their children buy from corporations, not farmers. The connection is broken. Permanently. Some farmers are trying to rebuild it. Farmers markets, direct to consumer.
It's sustain me.
CKC subscriptions, local food movements, but it's tiny, it's hard, and it's fighting against a corporate food system with billions of dollars in total infrastructure control. Can farmers reclaim their markets? Can we rebuild direct sales at scale? Can independence be recovered? Or is that door closed forever? Who did your grandfather sell to? What direct customers did your family have? What happened to those relationships? Share below, because if we're going to rebuild what was lost, we need to remember what it looked like. The next video shows what happened when farmers lost control of land, markets, equipment, and seeds all at once. How complete dependence became inescapable. That one's coming soon. Fellow farmers, stay close.